Good morning, my name is Peter DeChant. I'm Global Technical Manager with Valent Biosciences Public Health and Forestry Business Unit. Today I'm here to talk about VectoBac WDG for use in backpack spray application to control container mosquitoes. When I talk about container mosquitoes, I'm generally referring to Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, which are the vectors of dengue, chikungunya, and Zika virus. These mosquitoes develop in small containers where water collects. The intent of the power backpack spraying of VectoBac WDG is to create small drops which will drift into areas of vegetation or trash accumulation and reach these small containers and make deposit of the BTI AM6552, which you find in VectoBac WDG. In order to accomplish this type of application, we recommend a power backpack sprayer which is capable of delivering droplets in the range of 50 to 150 microns. The reason we want to use that range is that larger drops will not give you the kind of coverage that the small drops give you, and they will tend to fall vertically and not drift into the containers. Smaller drops, less than 50 microns, will tend to drift away on the wind and go up into the atmosphere and not reach the containers. For this application, we recommend using the Stihl SR450 Power Backpack Sprayer or the Stihl SR430 Power Backpack Sprayer. When using the Stihl, we recommend that you install the auxiliary pressure pump, which comes as a separate kit and is installed behind the back pad of the equipment in order to deliver a continuous pressure to the nozzle. With this setup, we also recommend using this auxiliary filter. The filter installs into this manifold which sits just below the tank, and it simply sets in and snaps into the manifold. Then the tank can be set on top and latched down onto the equipment. In order to achieve the right flow rate and droplet spectrum, we recommend using the gray ULV nozzle set on 0.8. When the Stihl SR450 or 430 comes from the factory, it arrives with the standard orange spray nozzle installed. You will need to replace the standard orange spray nozzle with the gray ULV nozzle. These nozzles are easy to replace. They're replaced simply by removing the orange nozzle and then inserting the new nozzle into the receptacle, and then it's important to press down very hard on the nozzle until it clicks. Once it's clicked, it's properly seated and the O-ring will be in its proper place and prevent any leakage. Then the nozzle needs to be adjusted with the 0.8 setting to the forward mark on the spray wand. The Stihl SR450, with the auxiliary pump installed, the filter, and the ULV nozzle set on 0.8, should deliver your VectoBac WDG spray mix in the range of 400 milliliters per minute. We find that generally this results in an application rate on average of about 3 gallons per acre. We need to add some fuel to the backpack sprayer. The Stihl instructs you to use a 50-to-1 fuel mix. You can either buy a ready-made 50-to-1 fuel mix, or you can buy two-stroke oil and prepare it yourself. The fuel tank is down here on the bottom. We're using a funnel because it's a little tricky to get the nozzle of a tank like this in here. You don't want to overfill it because that just makes a mess and creates a hazard. So we're probably good right there for the spraying we're going to do today. It's important when you set up the Stihl SR450 backpack to make sure that you have the tank positioned for liquid spray as opposed to granular spray. Now that's really not necessary with the SR430. So we remove the tank, and on the underside of the tank we can see that there is an opening like this. This opening needs to be positioned directly above the filter. not above the port, which is here for the granular type of application. So we want to have this opening matched up to this port. Position it. One thing that's also important to pay attention to is the controls of the SR450 backpack sprayer. There is the granular opening nozzle, which should always be in the vertical closed position. There is the throttle, which whenever you're spraying should always be in the full on and locked position. And then your liquid flow is turned on and off by actuating this lever here with your thumb. Okay, VectoBac WDG for backpack spray application to control container mosquitoes is typically applied at 7 ounces per acre. The acceptable range is from 3.5 ounces per acre up to 14 ounces per acre. However, we really try to target 7 ounces per acre, which is right in the middle of that range. Our field experience is that VectoBac WDG spray mixes applied through the Stihl SR450 as configured will result in about 3 gallons of spray mix applied per acre. However, it's very important to check the calibration of each individual machine and the calibration of your individual sprayers so that you are sure that you're in that range and can make adjustments to your spray mix in order to achieve that 7 ounces of VectoBac WDG per acre that you're targeting. The first step in calibrating a power backpack for VectoBac WDG spray application is to measure the flow rate of the machine. To do that, you start with a known quantity of water put into the machine, and then you run the machine at full throttle with the system as configured and determine how long it takes that known quantity to come out. Following that, you can do some math to determine the flow rate in gallons per minute or liters per minute. The standard approach to calibration is to use your speed, which we suggest a speed of 1 mile an hour, a very slow, lazy pace so that you're sure you take the time to cover all the known and suspected habitats on a particular property. We have measured the swath width of the Stihl SR450 to spray about 20 feet of coverage from the nozzle. We know that from earlier tests that the machine delivers a flow rate of 450 milliliters per minute. Doing the math with these figures, we come out to approximately 3 gallons per acre. With 3 gallons per acre, in order to achieve 7 ounces per acre of VectoBac WDG, we need about 2.33 ounces of VectoBac WDG per gallon. However, this standard approach to calibration is not really ideal for spraying residential yards with VectoBac WDG. And so we have to account for several things. Number one, we may not have exactly 450 milliliters per minute coming from the sprayer. Each individual sprayer should have its flow rate measured so you know specifically what the flow rate from that sprayer is. In addition to that, you are not able to walk linear lines through residential properties at exactly 1 mile an hour in order to treat. You're having to stop, you're having to turn, you're having to go around objects. So this 3 gallons per acre, while it is a good place to start for your initial mixes, you will still need to track how much you are using to spray individual properties over time and develop an average spray volume per acre based on the information you develop from spraying individual properties. Okay, we're looking at a residential property which contains a multitude of known, obvious, and suspected container habitats for Aedes aegypti or Aedes albopictus. If you look at the area which is covered in dense vegetation We don't know what's under there. There could be small plastic cups or bottles, or perhaps a dog's water bowl, something like that, that's holding water and mosquitoes are developing in it. As we look at the backyard of this property, we can see many obvious containers, such as tires and trash and other things that just simply catch water. So this is really the kind of property where we would do VectoBac WDG backpack spray in order to control the development of these mosquitoes. Earlier, I paced the perimeter of this property and found it to be 45 feet wide by 130 feet deep. If we multiply those two numbers, we come up with 5,850 square feet. If we divide 5,850 square feet by the surface area of an acre, we come up with approximately 0.14 acres. Right away, I see a plastic bag, which is in the vegetation. Plastic bags are notorious for holding water. Many of these could be in this vegetation where we cannot see them, and could be microhabitats for mosquito larvae. And also, if we look to the right in front of the porch, we can see there's a couple of waste tires which are well known for being sources of mosquito larvae. Looking at the extent of vegetation and visible habitats on this property, we would consider everything except the house to be habitat on this property. So looking at the size of the property and the size of the house, just a rough estimate would be that this is approximately 75% habitat. Okay, now we're in the back alley of the property looking in, and we can see that there have been a number of items dumped on this property that are ideal habitat for mosquito larvae, including the many waste tires, but also we have this piece of plastic to my left which has small chambers in it which are holding water and also are ideal mosquito larval habitat. Okay, the property that we were at in the field was 45 feet wide by 130 feet deep. So that comes out to a total of 5,850 square feet. However, the property also contained a house, which is not container mosquito habitat, except perhaps roof gutters, which it did not have. So we can exclude the house from the total size. The house was 36 feet by 48 feet for a total of 1,728 square feet. If we subtract these, we get 4,122 square feet, which is approximately 0.1 acre. So at 3 gallons per acre, we're going to be using about 0.3 gallons to treat this property. In the case of this particular property, just about everything around the house was either clearly obvious or suspected container mosquito habitat, because we could see the tires, we could see the containers. Where we couldn't see those was dense vegetation that probably harbored some. So in this scenario, our strategy would be to treat the entire property excluding the house. So if you fill the sprayer to a specific point prior to treating this property, and then you measure how much remains after you're done treating it, you should have used 0.3 gallons. We recommend, of course, 7 ounces per acre of VectoBac WDG. So we always recommend that people start out with a mix rate that will achieve 7 ounces per acre when you use 3 gallons of total spray per acre. Once you've done that and you treat a property like this, you should always check prior to spraying how much spray mix is in the sprayer, after spraying how much spray mix is in the sprayer, do a subtraction, and it should come out close to this. If it doesn't, you probably need to recalibrate in order to get to the rate you want to achieve. After you've done this with 4 or 5 properties, you're going to start to reach a point where you have a very clear picture of what your mix rate should be based on how much spray volume you're typically using per acre in these residential habitats. One thing that's important is that not all houses are going to have the same extent of container habitat. Let's assume that this house was well taken care of and you only really had in the back here maybe an area of potential habitat this wide, some over here around the tree in front, and a little here on the side. So you would not in that case have to treat the entire property. In that case, you would only target these areas of suspected habitat. And in that case, of course, it's much less than the 0.3 gallons per acre. So this approach to calibration is somewhat more of an art than a science when we're dealing with these residential lots. Since we will be spraying at the rate of 3 gallons per acre and we want to apply VectoBac WDG at 7 ounces per acre, we need to make a total spray mix of 3 gallons that contains 7 ounces of VectoBac WDG. The first step is to weigh the material. We're going to use a graduated cylinder and a scale to do this, and the reason for using a graduated cylinder is once we learn the volumetric measurement that correlates to the weight measurement, we don't need to bring the scale into the field each and every time in the future. Okay, we're going to prepare 1 gallon of VectoBac WDG spray mix. That 1 gallon should contain 2.33 ounces of VectoBac WDG, which is the equivalent of 66 grams. So I'm going to weigh the 66 grams of VectoBac WDG in this graduated cylinder. And the 66 grams comes out to be about 125 milliliters. So this is what we'll use to prepare our spray mix. Now, knowing that 66 grams is the equivalent of 125 milliliters volumetrically, we can also go to the field and use that amount, 125 milliliters of VectoBac WDG, to measure in order to do our mixing without having to bring the scale to the field and do that function over and over again. Okay, I'm going to prepare a 1 gallon mix of VectoBac WDG, and for 1 gallon of VectoBac WDG we want to mix in 2.33 ounces of product. I've already measured the 2.33 ounces in this cylinder here. Now, mixing VectoBac WDG in water is really quite easy, but there's one thing that you always need to remember. You do not want to just dump the product into water that is static. The water always needs to be moving while you're adding the product. It's easily accomplished with something like this. Just a stick, keep the water moving while you're adding the product. Or if you want to do something convenient, you can use a stirrer. But this is better for larger volumes. It's going to make a big mess, so I will not use this device. I'll use the simple stick method. So we begin getting the product in motion. We keep it moving. I have slightly less than 1 gallon of water in this bucket. When I add this, we should come out very close to 1 gallon. Now we've completed a very homogeneous mix of VectoBac WDG in water, and the total volume we've arrived at is almost exactly 1 gallon. You always want to prepare your VectoBac WDG spray mixes in a separate mixing vessel than the spray tank. This is because you need to agitate the mix. So we've prepared our VectoBac WDG spray mix in this 3 gallon bucket, and we've prepared 1 gallon of spray mix for the purpose of this treatment. So the sprayer has a built-in filter in the top, and we want to pour our spray mix in through that filter. After you've put your VectoBac WDG spray mix in the sprayer, it's important to put the top on the spray tank so that it seats evenly and is securely tightened. For 2 reasons. One, you don't want the material to slop out and spill on you. The other is that this gasket in the top will seal this and help the back pressure from the machine push the spray through the nozzle. Once the spray mix is in the tank, it can hold up for up to 72 hours, but you really do not want to mix more than you're going to use for any single spray job. However, if you're going to do multiple spray jobs during the course of a day, you can mix quite a lot of material and it will stay suspended nicely, especially if it's in the back of a pickup truck you're driving around. Just simply the stopping and going will keep it real well mixed and suspended. If you've let it sit in one spot for a long period of time before spraying, it's a good idea just to give the sprayer a shake like this so that it's resuspended and ready to go.